what's going on and say, well, this is like a bad weekend in Brooklyn. Are you kidding me? We haven't had 4 police stations blown up in Brooklyn. We haven't had 2 hotels blown up. We haven't had a UN headquarters blown up. So, I think we need to get a grip on reality. We're faced with a significant insurgency. We don't have enough troops on the ground to deal with it. And we ourselves in this country remain divided on how to attack that problem. We don't want more troops, but we want the insurgency to go away.
And let me ask you about that insurgency. We don't have a lot of time here, but so much talk about foreign fighters. I haven't seen, maybe you haven't, can help me out here, evidence of those foreign fighters come in. It makes sense logically, but have we actually seen evidence of fighters coming in from outside and being part of what even the defense secretary is blamed on Ba'ath Party loyalists?
I think we've seen the evidence in some of the suicide bombings, but there's a lot of other activity that's not suicide in nature that would point to more Ba'athists or, if you will, Iraqi nationalists.
Larry, thanks a lot.
Good to be with you guys.
All right, Larry Johnson is a former CIA official, joined us from Washington. On Monday, the U.S. Senate takes up the $87 billion Iraqi reconstruction package, and it is expected to pass. Just after midnight, the House passed the bill, which is all grants, no loans, a big victory for the president. NBC's Brooke Hart is on Capitol Hill for Checkpoint CNBC.
On this vote, the yeas are 298, the nays are 121.
By a more than 2-to-1 margin, House lawmakers okayed the president's $87 billion spending plan. Most goes to U.S. troops in Iraq and Afghanistan. $20 billion goes toward rebuilding Iraq's infrastructure and economy. Lawmakers debated through the night whether it's the right use of tax dollars.
I pledge not to write a blank check for a plan with no exit strategy, no clear link to this supplemental, and no details.
We're investing in a future where our children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren can live free from the fear of terrorists, free from the fear of airplanes flying into our buildings, free from the threat of losing lives, losing lost ones to terrorists.
At a fundraiser in Texas last night, President Bush said the U.S. will finish its work.
This country will not be intimidated.
The president's decision to invade Iraq is under scrutiny on Capitol Hill. The White House, Pentagon, and State Department face a deadline of today to turn over documents in a Senate probe of intelligence on which the war was based. But the winning sentiment here is that the U.S. can't hold back money now. The Senate is expected Monday to approve the reconstruction costs and send the president the money he wanted to occupy and rebuild Iraq. In Washington, Brooke Hart, NBC News.
Well, there's tighter security on Capitol Hill today after yesterday's scare when 2 people walked into a House office building with what turned out to be a toy gun, part of a Halloween costume. Remember, all of Capitol Hill was locked down for about 2 hours while the whole thing out. So now Capitol Police are making changes. For one thing, they've slowed down the conveyor belts on the X-ray machines so guards can get a better look at the packages that people bring in. In Los Angeles today, the gun was real. Photographers outside the courthouse where the Robert Blake hearing is being held caught a remarkable scene. A man firing a gun repeatedly at a lawyer, and then both shooter and victim walk away. We'll have more about all this. The story behind the pictures next. And then, still in California, the weather is better, but the fires are still burning. The latest live when this Friday Checkpoint returns.
CNBC Asia. Profit from it.
Wherever in the world you find New York life, you'll find our values. Humanity, integrity, and financial strength guide every product we offer here at home and everywhere in the world you find us. Values that make New York life the company you keep.
Imagine what a pleasant surprise it must have been when man first harnessed the power of wind. At GE, we still believe in wind as a pure, natural source of power. GE Wind Energy for a cleaner, more fuel-efficient world. GE, imagination at work.
Chinatown is one of my favorite places with lots of colors and interesting characters, and I love the old shop houses. My friends love having dumplings in a little side street store. I always find the best bargains in Chinatown. I always take my friend to this restaurant in Little India called the New Delhi Restaurant. Good curry, and it's really nice because you get to sit outside and watch the street. The Esplanade is a massive centre with like one place where everyone can perform. After a performance, you always go and have a couple of beers. At Harry's, any musician can get up and play after a certain hour. We have lots of fun. Great jazz bar for a couple of drinks. My must-see places for Singapore are Chinatown, Raffles Hotel, Little India, the Esplanade, and Newton Circus.
Mike Higgins. You've seen him go outside the box on Squawk. Now catch him on the weekend. Yes! Whether he's sipping spirits by the ocean or trying on the latest fashions, Mike Higgins always walks a few steps outside the box.
Strap him up. Here we go.
Outside the box.
Weekends on CNBC Asia.
Outside a Los Angeles courthouse today, a point-blank shooting in front of stunned reporters and photographers who were there to cover the Robert Blake hearing. In the video shot by Court TV, you can see the suspect, William Stryler, walk up to Jerry Curry, who's a 53-year-old lawyer, and he starts shooting as Curry frantically, behind the tree, tries to avoid the shots. The shooter reportedly yelled, "You took my money, that's what you get." Then the shooter starts walking away, very calmly walking away as the victim moves away from the tree, his hands in the air, apparently realizing he has been shot. Video cameras rolling, the suspect calmly walks down the street. He looked back once, he goes on, as photographers watch, take some pictures, and finally, you'll see in a moment here that as the photographer points him out, here he comes, and he's just walking there. And finally, someone says, "Hey, we got to get this guy." There they go. They bring him down, tackled by police, at least one photographer. The victim was, we're told, hit by some of the shots. The attorney was. He is now in stable condition at a nearby hospital. Police say his injuries do appear serious, but not life-threatening. The shooting is not connected to the Blake case, but that is certainly why all the cameras were there to catch it. What an amazing scene. Chris Whitcomb is back with us, our global security expert. First of all, Chris, you were saying this attorney reacted pretty well, considering.
Scott, look, I mean, this is an amazing thing to watch play out. People hear reports of shootings and they think someone walks up, shoots, you fall down. This is a clear demonstration of how surreal some of these crimes are. This man showed no expression whatsoever, no emotion, and the lawyer hid behind the world's skinniest tree, I think is what you've got to call it. He had no law enforcement background, he had no specific training, and yet this is a man fighting for his life. I think it's really remarkable how he saved himself.
You know, I want to ask you about courthouse security. I mean, I spend a lot of time out in front of and inside courthouses, and the security does seem to vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. Is something like this a problem? I mean, clearly it's a problem for the people here, but does it point to a larger problem of securing courthouses?
No, I don't think you can point to security in a courthouse. It happened outside. They were concerned about everything inside. They're trying to protect the proceedings. Robert Blake, obviously a very high-profile defendant in this case. It's not something that they can really worry about outside. I think it's interesting how long it took for a response. 6 gunshots, I'm assuming it looks like a revolver. Probably 6 gunshots outside, and it looks like an off-duty deputy came in to save the day. I even saw what looked like a gaffer from one of the camera crews going after this guy with one of the mounts from a lighting pole or something. So everybody jumped in on this thing, but it wasn't just law enforcement.
Interesting that there was kind of almost a deer in the headlights type of reaction from the people there. I guess that's probably typical in a situation.
It is typical. Who walking down the street thinks these things can happen? We're deconditioned, deprogramming by watching television and movies all the time. You see people here, a woman on the telephone, people standing around with their hands in their pockets watching it as if it's some kind of a prank. These things are terribly dangerous to everyone involved, not just the lawyer he was shooting at, but I think that's where we are in American culture, and it's a tough situation.
Amazing pictures. Chris, thanks for your insight. It is supposed to rain tomorrow in Southern California, and that is most welcome news, but the fires are still burning, and the winds are supposed to kick up again next week. 20 people are dead, 2,800 homes destroyed, 750,000 acres burned. Today, Governor-elect Arnold Schwarzenegger and current Governor Gray Davis opened the first one-stop center where people who have suffered losses can apply for government help. NBC's Karen Brown is back on the front line tonight in San Bernardino, California. Karen?
Well, Scott, I can tell you at this hour, crews are racing to build a 30-mile-long protective line around the town of Big Bear because, as you said, those Santa Ana winds are expected to come back. Of course, this is what they are trying to avoid. This neighborhood down below on the mountain completely destroyed. This home is gone next door. This house completely destroyed. But we do have some good news. Firefighters believe they are getting the upper hand.
Firefighters were finally on the offensive near Big Bear Lake, the last community to be imminently threatened by fire.
And what we're out here doing is basically trying to prep the structures for the approach of the fire, doing the things that we can to make these houses defensible, pulling flammables away from the house.
Aided by rain and even snow, firefighters were able to save most of nearby Lake Arrowhead, although they did lose more than 300 homes.
We were prepared to try to fight the fire, but we weren't prepared for the aftermath of what we'd be seeing.
I was shocked. It's the only place here. Everything on the way down was burned down. I didn't expect to see it.
Fires have ravaged Southern California for more than a week. This time-lapse photography of the deadly blaze in San Diego County shows just how quickly the fire spread before the moist air moved in.
We want to try to get citizens back as quickly as possible, but always considering their safety.
Firefighters worked to put out the hot spots before thousands of evacuees could go home. But with donated costumes and candy, the kids at this shelter in San Bernardino County got to celebrate Halloween.
I'm going to try to get a princess or an angel.
Many residents say the firemen are their angels, but for the crews on the front lines, they say the cooler temperatures are the godsend.
Now, even once they do get full containment on these fires, the work for the fire crews is far from over. They expect mop-up to take a few weeks. Reporting live in San Bernardino County, California, I'm Karen Brown. Now back to you, Scott.
Karen, thanks very much. Karen Brown in San Bernardino for us tonight. And coming next here on Checkpoint CNBC, is that glass of milk just as good for you if it comes from a cloned cow? A controversial decision, at least a preliminary one, by the Food and Drug Administration that could lead to cloned milk, cloned meat. You could find yourself buying food made from cloned animals with no label to tell you the difference. We will ask a top official at the FDA why we shouldn't be nervous. Checkpoint, we'll be right back.
CNBC Asia. Profit from it.
Chinatown is one of my favorite places with lots of colors and interesting characters, and I love the old shop houses. My friends love having dumplings in a little side street store. I always find the best bargains in Chinatown. I always take my friend to this restaurant in Little India called the New Delhi Restaurant. Good curry, and it's really nice because you get to sit outside and watch the street. The Esplanade is a massive centre with like one place where everyone can perform. After a performance, you always go and have a couple of beers. At Harry's, any musician can get up and play after a certain hour. We have lots of fun. Great jazz bar for a couple of drinks. My must-see places for Singapore are Chinatown, Raffles Hotel, Little India, the Esplanade, and Newton Circus.
For a comprehensive look at the week's major market stories.
Asian markets all finishing higher this week.
For an outlook of the Asian markets the week ahead.
Travel is picking up very nicely within Asia.
For all the major headlines and business news that concerns you.
The Japanese market has been on a roller coaster ride this year.
Join Martin Sung on Asia Market Week.
That was the week that was. What about the week just ahead?
Weekends on CNBC Asia.
A blueprint bust today as federal prosecutors indict an executive at a New Jersey valve maker for allegedly supplying detailed valve blueprints to a New York company, knowing that those blueprints would then be sent on to North Korea to help build a nuclear plant there. Ravi Muhadevan, federal court today after being released on a $750,000 bond. He works for Valcor Engineering, which has a contract to supply valves to Mitsubishi Heavy Industries America for use in a North Korean nuclear plant that is not under international supervision. It is illegal to send anything to a nation building what's known as unsafeguarded nuclear facilities. The plans were intercepted before reaching Korea. Chris Whitcomb, of course, our global security expert. Chris, how significant is this?
Well, Scott, I think this is what we're looking at. North Korea's nuclear proliferation program presents real problems to the United States, not the least of which is a destructive capability. They very well may have delivery mechanisms that could hit the west coast of the United States within a very short period of time. And the government has said these are tough to hit, that they're well buried underground and may rule out a military strike. Diplomatic action has really not gotten very far. So we step back and say, how do we fight their nuclear program? And answer may be taking out the technology that allows them to proceed. So I think this is symbolic more than anything else, but it might be an important part of the program.
All right, thank you, Chris. Are you ready for cloned cuisine? The Food and Drug Administration tentatively concluded that food from cloned animals is safe. So safe it doesn't even need a label to tell you the difference. But it will be a long time, if ever, before your lamb chops come from Dolly the sheep. For more on this latest cloning debate, we turn to NBC's Steve Handelsman, live in Washington. Steve?
Hi, Scott. This is a preliminary step only by the federal government, but it's a strong hint that the final move by the Food and Drug Administration looks like it'll please agribusiness, the big cattle companies who insist that so-called cloned food is safe. The FDA has not okayed the sale of any meat or any milk from cloned animals. Not one burger can contain any beef from a cloned cow, and it's scarce now anyway. Of America's roughly 100 million cattle, only an elite few like these are cloned. They're genetic copies of the best of their breed. FDA says today their meat and milk should be safe. That's what biotech beef companies argue.
If the original animal is a healthy, normally producing farm animal, then there's no reason to suspect there'd be any difference in that particular twin or animal clone.
Cloning is simple. Genetic material from the animal to be duplicated is injected into a fertilized egg. The calf will be a copy. But since Dolly the sheep was the first mammal cloned in 1997, consumer groups have worried about the meat and the milk.
The overwhelming reaction is yuck.
Carol Tucker, foreman of the Consumer Federation of America today.
I am concerned that FDA does not have the data to justify a statement that these products are safe.
FDA has made no decision.
The jury's still out, and it would not be possible for me or anyone else to say which way this is going to go and when.
The cloners will keep working to duplicate prize-winning cows and to drive the cost down. So the meat and the milk from the man-made cattle twins and their offspring will be ready for sale when and if the FDA gives the okay. Public hearings are set to start next week and are certain to reopen a fresh debate about cloning animals and perhaps about cloning humans as well. Live from the Capitol, I'm Steve Handelsman. Scott, back to you.
Steve, thanks. Steve Handelsman in Washington for us tonight. Lester Crawford is Deputy Commissioner of the Food and Drug Administration. He joins us from the FDA's headquarters in Rockville, Maryland. Dr. Crawford, good evening.
Hello, how are you?
Very good. Explain to us, for those of us not grounded in FDA procedures, what is it that the administration has approved here or concluded, and what has to happen before cloned food actually hits supermarket shelves?
Well, we have not concluded or approved anything at this point. What we're doing is we're making a public process of this evaluation of cloned animals as potential contributors to the food supply, that is, animals that produce food. We asked the National Academy of Sciences about 2 years ago to do a study of this to see whether there was anything inherently wrong about this in terms of food safety. They came back about a year ago and told us that there was not, but that we needed to evaluate the data. So we're now setting up a risk assessment of all the research that's been done around the world on this subject, and we'll have that completed by about the first of the year, and then we will evaluate what we find and then make a decision. We won't do that, though, until we're certain that this approach is safe, there are no food safety problems. It will take as long as it requires.
What will you look at? What kinds of things, first of all, did the Academy look at, and what briefly will you look at to determine whether this is actually safe?
The Academy looked at the process itself and evaluated whether or not it added something to the food that they thought might be a problem. What we'll do now is look at all the scientific research that's been done around the world to see whether or not there's something that maybe the Academy missed or that we've missed. So far, it seems that the food would be safe. There's no reason to believe that it would not be, but FDA has to be as certain as we possibly can be in circumstances like this.
Dr. Crawford, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Lester Crawford is Deputy Commissioner of the Food and Drug Administration. And up next, a stunt flight gone terribly wrong. The dramatic pictures when we come back.
Don't miss the definitive roundup of Asia's Financial Week. That's Asia Market Week, coming up next. CNBC Asia. Profit from it.
To be this place's biggest natural asset.
Now they're grazing on it.
This man is a mining expert, responsible for extracting the 2 billion barrels of oil from beneath this ground. And this man belongs to the close-knit Aboriginal community who have lived here for centuries. It's his trucks which are starting the task of reclamation, and together they'll provide Canada with a vital energy source and the community with a viable future.
We mine it and refine it.
And then we reclaim it.
In a partnership which benefits men, mine, and moose.
They were here before us.
And they'll be still around after we're gone.
A little unusual perhaps, but that's hardly surprising.
Every minute, every hour, all day, every trading day. From Europe to the US and across Asia.
Let's get straight to the market.
CNBC has all the latest business news and up-to-the-minute financial information.
Wall Street's a
pretty positive start to keep you informed and connected to the global and regional economies and businesses. CNBC. Profit from it.
On the Asian stock market this morning.
The only show that keeps you up to date with the day's market movers across Asia.
Numbers should bode well.
The other big story.
Live market coverage and real-time data as the trading day heats up.
Scoop. Analysts like this one.
Breaking news.
Huge flight into bond markets.
Business opportunities that could make you money.
Strong cash flow, strong balance sheets. And that's the sort of thing you need to focus on.
Your money is their business.
What defensive actions do you recommend?
Asset allocation, most important.
Make sure you're watching Market Watch, weekday.
大家好，欢迎收看股市求富。首先为我今天的声音跟大家致个歉。那在今天整个大盘，我们昨天已经跟各位提示，在过去我都是提前，甚至于前一个礼拜就告诉各位整个大盘它怎么走。但是昨天的气氛，我很明确的告诉各位，在这个位置有土洋大战一个抗衡的情况。我也用了几个例子，包括什么？包括尾盘台积电、中钢、联电，它的走法，它的尾盘大单。事后证明，昨天我们整个来看，外资它持续买进的个股，在昨天是一个往下走的，而它没有买它卖超的个股，包括中钢，昨天因为利多，它有一个作价的大单出来。那为什么在此刻我会告诉各位土洋大战它已经形成，要各位特别留意。这一次我没有办法跟各位做事前的预测，因为多空的力道在这里，它目前还没有尘埃落定，这个是昨天我提示各位的。那么今天你可以看到整个大盘开盘2点，然后一直都在盘下，用盘跌的方式往下走，而收盘跌63点。在以往我们看到5600、5900两次攻坚的过程里面，它在拉回的时候是量缩的，但是今天它是量增的。投资朋友，为什么昨天跟你讲土洋大战的现象出来的